everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Sanjay Prakash, and today in this video I will explain about SSIS. When we are speaking about SSIS, it is SQL Server Integration Services. So don't be scared about the name SSIS, what is that and all that, right? So do not scare about this. Is very easy thing and you can learn it easily, right? So this session will be basic session for you guys, so that once you get acquainted with different concepts of SSIS with respect to Dynamics, then you will be easily you can easily go in depth on your own, right? So I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and a Microsoft MVP, and I'm preparing technical videos in daily basis, so keep watching. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe this channel. So when we are speaking about SSIS, what is SSIS? SSIS stands for SQL Server Integration Services. It's a platform that we can use to build enterprise level data integration services. When we are saying it is data integration services, you might have different systems that stores data, right? You might have source data, you might have destination data. You may store data in SQL Server, you may store data in flat files, whether it is Excel or whether it is Notepad, you can store it, right? You can also store your data in Dynamics 365, right, which is a business application. Now, as because we have multiple data sources available in the world, it is a requirement that sometimes you need to migrate your data from your legacy system to your target system whenever it is required. For example, if you are managing your data in SQL Server, which is your legacy system that you store every data, whether it is student or whether it is account or whatever data you can think of. If you store your data in your SQL Server and at the later point of time you decide to implement Dynamics 365, then you might want migration. You might want migrating your source data from legacy system to Dynamics 365, right? If you are managing your data or you are storing the same data or different data in different data sources, let's say you are storing data in SQL Server, plus you are storing data in flat files, and you are storing data in Oracle, then how you can combine all the data sources and push it in Dynamics 365 for a streamlined and data migration. Let us see how SSIS can be leveraged to migrate our data, legacy data from different data sources, combine the data, transform the data, and load in the Dynamics 365. So SSIS gives a ETL services like extract, transform, and load concept. Like that, you can extract data from your source system and transform the data as per your need, and load the data in the Dynamics server or your destination server, right? So to start with, we have to go step by step, right? Because to install Dynamics 365, to install SSIS, it requires step by step, right? First, you need to have Visual Studio 2019, right? You might have different Visual Studio versions, but if it is lower than 2019, you have to install specifically the Sdkt tools. But if you are having Visual Studio 2019, then enabling Sdkt is just a click away. You are not going to anywhere and install any SQL Server data tools. Sdkt stands for SQL Server data tools. So how to enable Sdkt for Visual Studio 2019, I will show you. First, you have to go to Visual Studio installer in your machine. So search Visual Studio installer. Now when you open the Visual Studio installer, it will open the Visual Studio installer. Click on this Visual Studio installer. So let us wait, it will open for you, and it will display the Visual Studio versions that you have already installed in your local machine, right? Just you need to click modify option and enable the feature called as database feature, then it's done, right? Sdkt will be automatically enabled for you, right? Now here you will see this is the Visual Studio installer. I have already installed Visual Studio Community Edition, and if you see here, there is a modify option. Click on the modify. If at the time of fresh installation of Visual Studio Community Edition, if you have already enabled database feature, then you are not required to do this. If you have not done, you have to go to here and modify and select this option called as data storage and processing. I have already selected this at the time of installation, so I do not need to worry about. So once you select this, click on install. Right? Once you install, it will take some time and install the database tools like SSRS, SSIS, all data tools. Right? Now the first step is done, enabling Sdkt for Visual Studio 2019. Then you have to create a new Ssis project. So you have to open Visual Studio, right? Open Visual Studio, and in the Visual Studio you have to search a template called as SQL Server Integration Services, right? So you might have multiple templates available in Visual Studio, right? So you can click on create new project, and here you need to choose a template called as SQL Server Integration Services. So search integration service. Now when you search integration service, it will list out the integration service templates, and that you can choose to create your SSIS projects, SQL Server Integration Service projects. Now choose the integration service project template, then click next. Sometimes the project template load takes time, but you have to keep patience, right? In anything you have to keep patience. It's not about working in projects, anything in your life also you have to need patience, right? Anyway, this is just anyway, leave it. So we have to, now it is initializing templates, and we have to wait for some couple of seconds. It depends on your RAM also. If your RAM is high memory, then it will be better. My RAM is 8 GB, that's why still it is sometimes slow. Not to worry about, we have to wait for it. Right, now you see this is returning integration service project Azure enabled, another is integration service project. I want to select integration service project. Click on next. Once you click on next, it will ask you to provide a integration service project name. Let's say I want to give a name legacy to D365, right? Integration. So give a sensible name so that your team can understand, and define a location. Choose place solution as a directory, same directory, click create. Once you click on create, it will create a blank template for you, right? In the blank template you will find the SSIS project project file and other assistant files also. So you understand, you see this is the solution and this is the SSIS project files. This is the project DTSX. This is the project SSIS project package where we will be working. And you will find there are many options: control flow, data flow, parameters, many things are there, right? And these are the toolbox. So we will just do the basic things so that you can explore on your own once you get idea, right? Now the control flow will control the flow from source to destination, right? So the first thing is you need to add a data flow task. Drag and drop a data flow task from SSIS toolbox area to control flow canvas, right? Let me maximize this for you. Yeah, right. Now this data flow task defines or includes the task between two data sources. So double click this, it will navigate to the data flow. In this data flow task you have to define the source data and destination data, right? So what is the source data? The source data I want to drag on the data flow, and here you will see 4 types of data sources available: SQL Server, Excel sheet, flat files, and Oracle. I have my data in 2 legacy systems, In my SQL server, this is my SQL server, local SQL server. I have a database table called as student on Subchief database, and in the student table I have student name, gender, phone number and email. I have two records here, right? I have created two records here. And in my notepad also I have student name, gender, phone, email, and which are separated by vertical line, right? So the point here is I have stored my data in two data sources. One is SQL and another is flat file, right? My requirement is I want to push all this data from flat file from the notepad, plus I want to push this data from SQL server to Dynamics 365 student entity. I have my student entity is here, right? This is my student entity in Dynamics 365. Gender, roll number, everything is there. I want to load this data from flat file from SQL server in one shot, in one go, using SSIS. Now you understand why SSIS is used. SSIS is used to pull multiple data sources and push it in your target data source in a better extract tool, right? Extracting or transforming feature. So you have to connect the data source first. I want to connect SQL server, choose SQL server, click new, click OK. Now you have to choose the server. Let me choose the server dot, and use here in the drop down you have to choose the database. I have chosen the database, click on OK. Once you click on OK, the database is created for me, OLEDB data source. I can rename this, right? The SQL legacy data, right? I have renamed this. Now double click and click on the column. Now first in the connection manager you have to choose which table you want to connect with. I want to connect with student. Which columns I want to read? I want to read student name, gender, phone, email. That's fine. So this is the output columns that will be returned. Click on OK. Now first data source is retrieved. Next I want to add another data source, because I want to pull SQL server data is pulled. Now I want to pull the flat file data that is available in the notepad, right? So I'll go here and choose flat file. Click on new, click OK. This way you can connect to a flat file data source. There are three steps in SSIS. One is extract, that we are doing right now, extracting data. Next we will do transforming the data, and the third one is load data, right? So transformation is optional. If you have clean data in your legacy data source, you do not need any transformation. But if you need to clean your data with some transformation, then use the middle option called as transformation from the ETL concept. Give a name here, let's say connection manager, notepad ds data source, and choose the data source file. I have data source file here in the desktop student, and here you need to define, as because it is a flat file, you need to define the delimiter. The delimiter is the vertical bar, right? Because in the text file every data is extract or separated by a vertical bar, and this vertical bar will be used as a delimiter so that we can extract data, right? Now choose vertical bar as header row delimiter and go to columns to check. See, this is the automatically it is identified the first row as header and the second row onwards the data. Very easy, right? Click on OK. Now these two data source I have defined, right? This is flat file data source and this is SQL legacy data. Now I want to combine these two data source to one, so that whenever I will push to Dynamics, it will get pushed one by one without identifying which data source it is coming from. So I have to use another tool called as Union All. Union All tool can be used in SSIS to combine multiple data sources, right? So I have dragged this and I can combine this. So use the blue icon, blue arrow, to connect the down step. Here also I want to connect. So what it will do now, this Union All tool or step will combine this data from this SQL server data source and also it will combine the data from this flat file data source. So if it is 2 items, 2 records, and this contains 2 records, then combinedly it will create 4 records at this step. If you double click, you will find the mapping here. This is the first data source mapping, and this is second data source mapping. Student, 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 right? Phone to phone, gender to gender, email to email. So ultimately the output column will be this. So normally you can add multiple data sources to combine using union all, right? The next thing is because, so if you want to transform, let's say you want to change data type, let's say this data type is, this column's data type is text, right? If you want to change, how to understand this data type is text, if you go to show advanced editor, input output option, here we will find the phone, and in the property you will see data type is string. Sometimes if you want to change your data type for transformation purposes, you can use data there is an option called as data conversion. This data conversion step also can be used. So these are all transformation tools, but I don't want any transformation right now. I'll just extract and load, okay, which is very simple, right? I don't want to make it complex. Now union all combines the data from SQL and the data from flat file. Next, what is the step? I want to push all this data to Dynamics 365. So how to connect Dynamics 365 from your SQL Server Integration Services, SSIS? You have to drag an element tool called as script component. Here you need to define 3 things, either whether it is a source or whether it is destination or transformation. I want to connect the destination server as Dynamics, so choose destination, click OK. Now the script component is enabled for me. You have to double click the script component, click on yes, and here you need to click on edit script, right? Once you click on edit script, let me show you. I have already created this one. I have already created union all and script component, and you have to connect the script component also from here like this, right? Now at this script component section, you need to connect your Visual Studio. How to connect Visual Studio? I'll show you here. You have to just double click and click on edit script. I'll show you what I have already created. This one, double click and click on edit script. Here in the edit script, if you click on edit script, it will open Visual Studio Editor, and in the Visual Studio Editor you can write your script. Like you can download SDKs, Dynamics 365 SDKs, and using Nuget packages. You have to install your required binaries in your GAC global assembly cache, otherwise it will not work, right? So it is now loading the Visual Studio script. Now in the meantime, let me check the steps that will follow. So we have used data flow task, connected SQL local. Now we are in the SQL, we are in the add script element, right? We want to edit script in Visual Studio and add required SDK, right? So how to do that? We will wait for the Visual Studio to open. Now you will see the Visual Studio is opened right now. Now in this Visual Studio editor, you do not need to do anything. You just focus on the section that is required. You do not need to explore everything in the Visual Studio project, right? Because this is just a connection to a script component in your SSIS. Why it is required? Because because the script component is connecting to Dynamics 365 server, this is required. So what we need to do on this project, the first thing is you need to use Nuget package manager to install Dynamics 365 core assemblies, right? So right click the project and go to manage Nuget package. Click on manage Nuget package, and when you click on manage Nuget package, directly the manage Nuget package screen will open inside this Visual Studio, and you have to search the assembly so that you can install. Which assembly you need to search? You need to search Microsoft.xrm.sdk.core assemblies, right? Now let us wait, the screen is loading. Now let me close the one which is not required. This is not required. If you open multiple screens, sometimes it will behave very slow, so close unnecessary windows, which will help you to clean the memory. See, this is the Nuget package manager. Here you need to search the assembly Microsoft. First you need to install microsoft.xrm.tooling.connector, and once you search this, you have to install this assembly. Click on install, right? Next you have to install Microsoft.core assemblies. You need to install this one, right? So I have already installed. Once you install this, you will find all your assemblies available here. You can see Microsoft XRM SDK, right? Microsoft client runtime. So all this required. When you install Microsoft core assemblies, it will automatically install the references in your reference folder. What is the next stage? The next stage is you have to install the Dynamics 365 SDKs, which are already added here in the reference, into GAC, Global Assembly Cache. How to do that? You have to go to Visual Studio command bar. This is your Visual Studio developer command prompt. Right click and click on Run as Administrator, right? So once the window will open, you have to copy the assembly path. What is the assembly path? The assembly path is the location where your Nuget package is stored. Right click this and click on Open Folder in Explorer. And if you go to Open Folder in Explorer, you will see the packages, right? So just go back to the screen. Otherwise, if you have already downloaded the assemblies in any project, you can also, let's say you have downloaded your let me search that. Go to C drive, users, and admin repos. So this is the location where I have stored, right? I have already created a console application where I have the project. Let me check that. Ultimately you have to download the package, right? Or let me download the package for you. I don't want to confuse. Right click the project and click on Manage Nuget Package and search Microsoft Tooling Connector. Click on this and click on Install. Right, we have to wait till it is installed successfully. So Nuget package will help you to extract all the required assemblies or DLLs that are required to communicate with Dynamics 365 server. So it will take some time to install all the required assemblies which are part of Microsoft CRM SDK XRM tooling.core assemblies. Click on I accept. Now as soon as you click I accept, it will install all required DLLs like Microsoft Identity Model, Active Directory, and all other assemblies, right? You can see here the status at the below. Now once the Microsoft CRM SDK XRM tooling is installed, the next thing is you have to install Microsoft core assemblies, right? So let us wait for some seconds. Right, now it is trying to install in the reference folder, you can see. Now everything is succeeded. Now I will go to here and search another assembly, Microsoft.core assemblies, and install that, the first one. Oh, sorry, it is already installed, so I don't want to install again. That's why it is showing on install. You see here. Now once you have installed this, the next thing is you have to go to the directory by right clicking in the project and click on Open File Explorer, and once you go back you will find a package here. This package contains all the references that are part of your binary or XRM SDK. You need to copy, in the command prompt you need to type gacc util space /i, and then you need to provide the path of the DLL. Which DLL? The path of the xrm.sdk DLL, right? So go to here in the Microsoft CRM SDK core assemblies library and net46, this one, right? This is the first DLL. So copy this path and paste here, then slash, what is the name of the DLL? Microsoft.xrm.sdk.dll. Now you have to do this installation of DLLs for all the assemblies. Like first is XRM SDK, the next one is Active Directory, which one? This Active Directory, and deployment also. This one, Microsoft XRM SDK.deployment. Then also we have Microsoft Client Directory, Active Directory, right? If you have not done some DLL, then it will throw error. Then you need to again install the required DLL in using this gacc util. Anyway, this is important step, otherwise it will throw error, right? Now what is the next thing? The next thing is, once you have installed all your necessary binaries in the gacc, you have to you need to specify the namespaces. These are the namespaces which we require: Microsoft XRM SDK, Microsoft XRM.tooling connector, these two, right? And also the using system.net. These are the assemblies that we require. Next we will directly move to the input 0 process input row buffer. This method is the method which is called whenever a script component is called from SSIS, and it process the records one by one. So I am trying to connect the Dynamics 365 using the connection manager, auth type, client secret, and this is the URL. I have already given my client ID and client secrets, right? Then I organization service, I have created an organization service. Then I am trying to create a entity record. You'll see entity object, entity logical name equal to soft_student, entity soft name equal to row.student ID. This row.student ID is the student name of the first row that is going to be processed, right? That is coming to the script component. So if you use row, it will give you the current row, and if you click on dot, it will give you the specific columns that you want to retrieve from the SSIS script component. Here I am checking if it is male, do option set this, and like gender I am providing value, like email I am providing row.email, then service.create. This is very similar, right? In plugins, in custom workflows, this code you are all aware of, right? So the important is how to connect Dynamics 365 using script component. That was important, right? Step by step. Now once it is done, you have to build it, and once the build is success, you have to close this, right? Build is started. At the bottom left corner you will see the status, build started. You have to wait till it is succeeded, right? Now it is succeeded. Close the Visual Studio. Now click OK and connect union all to script component using this blue arrow. Now we are ready to run our package. Now let us run our package. I have already connected two data sources, combined using union all, and passed all these rows to script component so that it will create the record in Dynamics one by one. Click on the run start button so that the package will run. Now it should fetch 2 records from OLEDB data source, SQL server. It will fetch 2 records from flat file. You see here 2 rows, and combinedly it passes 4 rows to script component, and it is loading. See, it is displaying the loader screen. That means it is connecting to Dynamics and trying to create 4 records one by one. Now the status is success. Every step is succeeded using tick mark. Now if you want to see if this 2 row is created in Dynamics or not, we can check George Clooney and Ssdt. Go here and try to refresh. You will see these 2 records is created, George Clooney and Ssdt. So these records are from flat file, right? George Clooney and Ssdt. You'll see here, you can see here George Clooney and Ssdt. Then in SQL Server we have Zoya Khan and Rajkumar. Now I can see Rajkumar and Zoya Khan, right? Now from all these data sources, the data is retrieved and loaded into Dynamics through SSIS. Now this SSIS can be more complex when you have more data, when you have more transformation steps, all that, right? Now you are clear about SSIS, how you can pull data and how you can push data. But if you require like merging, if you require like multicasting, or you want conditional splitting, there are many transformational steps available that you can use, right? Here you will see transformation steps: export, import, copy column, all that, pivoting, right? So these are all advanced things I don't want to tell you, because this tool is more mastered by data migration team, right? But as a Dynamics 365 developer, you should not be more more towards this, but you should have knowledge, you should have fair knowledge how it works, so that you can troubleshoot sometimes. Thank you everyone. I hope this session was very grateful, very beneficial for you. Please subscribe this channel if you have not done, and share with your friends so that they can also subscribe and get benefited. I will come with more videos next day. Thank you. Cheers.